Welcome in to the Punt and Pass podcast. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside by my co-host, Jake Fromm. Be sure to follow us on social media. We are at Punt and Pass on X and Instagram. I'm at Drew Butler. He's at Fromm Jake. Puntandpass.com, the number one destination for all things college football. Wow, what a weekend it was. Week 11 is in the books. And there were some interesting outcomes, to say the least, Jake Fromm. Of course, for Punt and Pass listeners, headlined by the big-time loss that Georgia took at the hands of Ole Miss in Oxford. The Dogs go down to the Rebels 28-10. How about Alabama laying a whooping on LSU in Baton Rouge, 42-13 here in Atlanta? Georgia Tech upends Miami 28-23. A couple of other results that we will touch on, but man, we have got so much to get to. How are you? You had a late night / early morning because the Detroit Lions with an unbelievable victory on Sunday Night Football against the Houston Texans last night. What's up, man?
Yeah, man, doing great. Sunday Night Football, awesome. Great atmosphere down there in Houston. Man, so awesome to come out of there with a win. Makes the trip home a lot better. But got back like 5:30, 6 a.m. So got a couple hours in, woke up, and now we're here on the show, man, recapping an epic weekend of college football. It's one of those that just makes college football special. You love it. You kind of hate it. Sometimes it's bittersweet, but man, it is an awesome product. So can't wait to get into it.
No question. We're going to get into it for sure. Shout out to Jake Bates.
That's right. Jake Bates.
Incredible 58-yard field goal and then a
52-yard
walk-off game winner for the Detroit Lions. Just squeezing it inside those uprights, but that's why they're there. Why not use all the space you can take? So just a huge win for the Lions. Such a fun team to watch. Great videos coming out of the post-game talk by Coach Dan Campbell in the locker room afterwards. I think I can speak for all of Punt and Pass Nation that we certainly love following along the Detroit Lions with Jake Fromm being a part of it. So that is really cool. You know what else is really cool?
Tell me.
Solomon Brothers Jewelers.
That's right.
And the Takori Bridal event that's coming up at all Solomon Brothers locations at the end of November. Let me tell you about it. First things first, this episode of Punt and Pass presented to you by our awesome partners at Solomon Brothers Jewelers. Check them out on social media. They are at Solomon Brothers. They're also at SolomonBrothers.com on the web. The Takori Bridal event is coming up on November 22nd through the 24th. That is right before Thanksgiving. It is that time of the year, Jake Fromm. Proposals are coming up. It's engagement season. Of course, if you need any sort of jewelry or diamond accessories for the holidays, Solomon Brothers has to be where you go. If you go into any of their 3 locations, mention Punt and Pass sent you, you can get up to 20% off your in-store jewelry purchase. The locations are Buckhead, Alpharetta, and Sharpsburg. You know that. But the Takori Bridal event coming up on November 22nd through the 24th is going to be incredible. You can get up to $10,000 cash back on Takori engagement rings and wedding bands, or you can get up to 3 years of interest-free financing. It includes GIA-certified diamonds. It's the event of the year, the Takori Bridal event at Solomon Brothers Jewelers locations all across Atlanta. Again, the OG location is in Buckhead, 17th floor Tower Place. There's one in the North Metro just past the Avalon in Alpharetta, and a brand new location south of the city in Sharpsburg, Peachtree City. At Solomon Brothers on social media, SolomonBrothers.com. Again, if you're in store, mention Punt and Pass sent you. You can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase. Simply the best. The only jewelry store experience you need if you're in Atlanta. So we support and love the support from Solomon Brothers Jewelers. All right, let's jump straight into first down in 3 and out. Of course, we're going to spend a fair amount of time on this week's episode, this Monday recap episode, on what happened in Oxford. Georgia loses to Ole Miss 28-10, and it was in the type of fashion that Georgia fans, Jake, have not seen in quite some time. The Dogs are outside of the top 10 in the rankings for the first time since 2020. And before we dive into what went wrong or what is wrong with Georgia at the moment, let me just first give a ton of credit to Ole Miss because they whooped Georgia. They played great. The fans showed up. Ole Miss started off slow with a turnover, and they were able to overcome that. They dominated Georgia first and foremost. So I do want to get that out of the way and say congratulations to them. They deserve a ton of credit. Their backs were up against the wall. Lane Kiffin said as much before the game. It was essentially a win or go home type scenario for Ole Miss. And buddy, they showed up big time. They beat down Georgia 28-10.
Yeah, I want to follow up right where you left off and give Ole Miss their flowers as well. More specifically, Jackson Dart getting injured there at the first part of the game, going into the locker room, coming back out, I guess taping that ankle or whatever up, and man, coming out and playing great. I remember me and you were texting during the game. It was like, can they take this lefty out of the game? He just marched all the way down the field, and Jackson Dart goes in there and just picks right up where he left off. And I mean, honestly, just a great performance and a gritty performance. Ole Miss was also without their star wide receiver, and I believe their star running back.
That's right.
And I mean, like you said, it was just a fashion in which Georgia had lost that we're not used to seeing, where they lost the line of scrimmage, got absolutely eaten alive up front. Ole Miss's front four just wreaking havoc, getting to the quarterback, doing a great job of disrupting the pocket. And yeah, it was just a weird and different product, battling the elements too, raining a little bit off and on during the game. I think you have to give Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin a lot of credit, and Lane finally got that big signature win that he was searching for.
A huge signature win against a top 5 opponent. You kept seeing the lower third graphic throughout the game. If you watched it on ABC, Ole Miss has not done that. They had not beaten top 5 opponents in the past. Of course, they were 1-11 against Georgia in their 12-game series. There were a bunch of trends that did not necessarily give Ole Miss a whole lot of credit heading into this matchup. Now, we can go down the list, Jake, and take a look at every single position group: offense, defense, special teams, coaching, players, execution, preparation, when you're talking about what went wrong for Georgia. And as you and I have said so many times on this podcast, you currently still playing, stories that I provide from my days of playing, both of us having been at Georgia. We say this time and again because it is so painfully true. Winning football is so much fun. Losing football totally sucks. It sucks for everybody. It sucks for the coaches. It sucks for the players. It sucks for the fans. It sucks for the families. It sucks for the girlfriends. It sucks for the support staff, the training staff, everybody, because everything comes under the microscope. When you win, it's awesome. Everybody's great. Even if you win by a small margin, even if you win a game you're not supposed to win, it's all good because winning solves everything. When you lose, it's the worst. And that's where Georgia is right now. Is all hope lost for Georgia? Absolutely not. Do they have a gigantic game coming up in Athens this Saturday night? Absolutely. Are all of their preseason goals still in front of them? Yes, they are, which is crazy to think about. And I put this video out yesterday with some quick reactions. Again, we'll get to what happened in the game here in just a second. But Jake, I said to the fans, not only of just Georgia, but all college football fans, it is time to alter your thought process on how you look at your teams, how you look at the season as a whole, and really the attitude you have when you're trying to make now what is a 12-team college football playoff. And simply put, it's the NFL now. You can lose games. Georgia's lost 2 games. They still can get into the playoff. A year ago, if you lose this game to Ole Miss, Carson Beck probably sits out for the rest of the season. A bunch of guys are putting their names in the transfer portal. Kirby and the coaching staff are starting to rotate a bunch of guys who haven't played. Like, the season's done. It is a lost cause. It's done. You're trying to figure out who's going to be eligible and want to play in a bowl game. Georgia's lost 2 games in the SEC. This weekend, it's going to be November 17th. And guess what? Everything is still out there. So that mind shift change has to happen, because Saturday, you walk into Sanford Stadium against the top 10 ranked Tennessee team, and everything is still right in front of you, Jake Fromm.
Yeah, I think that is the most important thing to hear today in our conversation, is everything they want to accomplish is still right there. Obviously, barring a win versus Tennessee at home this weekend. So everything they want to do is still right there. We know that. Obviously, hope the guys in that locker room know that. I know that is Kirby's message. And you have to learn from these losses and make adjustments going forward. And we can kind of talk about, whatever those adjustments are. But I do want to say about the game specifically, it's when you start playing with fire, eventually you will get burned. And
100%.
With the turnovers, with not necessarily being dominant in the run game, kind of all year, everybody knows you're dominant in the run game when everybody in the stadium knows you are going to run the football, and you can still pop off 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-yard runs. And they haven't been able to do that this year. Drops are still an issue. Defensively, they'll kind of be they're riding the roller coaster on defense of sometimes, man, they're playing hot, and it's like, you know what, this is the Georgia defense we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And other times, man, they are just kind of at the bottom of the roller coaster, and it is tough, and they're hurting for a step, and they can't get to the quarterback. So it's just a weird spot. And
yeah, it is.
One thing that we have seen this season is they respond very well. But man, a 28-10 loss at Ole Miss, that's an 18-point loss. And I will say this: if Ole Miss does a better job of scoring touchdowns in the red zone,
they held them to 5 field goals.
Let me tell you, this game's not even close. And it is a
blowout.
embarrassing blowout.
Yeah, look, you are 100% correct.
That could have been extremely bad. And I don't know. No one wants to play the coulda, shoulda, woulda game, but that could have been rough, real rough.
What's the old saying? If its and buts were candy and nuts, then every day would be Christmas. You want to know what is embarrassing?
Tell me.
33 rushing attempts and 59 rushing yards for a solid 1.8 per carry average. A linchpin of what Georgia's offense has been in the past in championship football teams is exactly what you just said, Jake Fromm. We're going to run it. We're going to run it. Everybody in the stands knows we're going to run it, and you cannot stop us. Georgia's offensive line got manhandled on Saturday by a very good Ole Miss defensive line. Georgia's wide receivers on Saturday, 0 separation, 0 deep ball threat. It was not good. Georgia's running backs could not establish the run game. And then, of course, as you know, Jake Fromm, quarterbacks always get the blame. They get the good blame when things are going good. They get all of the blame when things are going bad. Carson Beck, another interception. He also lost a fumble. I don't even know where to start. I really don't, because look, it's obviously something that is happening and has not subsided from happening, the turnover situation. The videos or the pictures towards the end of the game, when, of course, the cameras are going to be on your starting quarterback when he's sitting on the bench. One, he's cracking a smile while talking to Jaden Rashada. Look, you can make whatever assumption you want about that, his attitude, what Rashada's saying to him. Why is Carson Beck smiling? XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Here is one thing that does concern me. When I see Carson Beck sitting on the bench by himself and nobody's around him, he's by himself. Receivers aren't coming up to him. Running backs aren't coming up to him. The linemen aren't coming up to him. The coaches aren't necessarily coming up to him. To me, and again, it might just be a moment on the camera. I don't have eyes on Carson Beck through the entire game. But it worries me because I sit there and I say, who's doing the leadership work in order to try to bring these guys back together? Hey, we still got a chance. I mean, there was a chance there, and Ole Miss kicked 2 field goals late to then make it a 3-score game where Georgia obviously wasn't going to win anymore. But I look at it and I say, where's the leadership? Things are going wrong. Who is going to be the person that says, I want to bring us back? And for whatever reason, Carson Beck has not been able to be that guy. No playmakers have stepped up to become that guy for Georgia. And I just see some trends. And again, it's selective because I'm just telling you what I see on the television. It worries me because I feel like when things go bad, they're just going to continue to spiral rather than somebody saying, nope, I got this. I'm going to make sure that we get ourselves out of this situation.
Yeah. On offense, it's such about your playmakers at some point in the game have to step up and make a play. And last year, those 2 guys were Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey.
Yeah.
And this year, it's kind of who is it? Is it by committee? People have been banged up. We've had some drops. And it's really been put a lot on Carson's shoulders. And man, it has been tough, and it's been an uphill battle, kind of beating your head up against the wall. And I don't know. I don't have all the answers here. I know that I'm a big body language guy. I'd love to see something going on there on the sideline, rallying the troops. Something going on. Honestly, I don't really mind the smile thing that happened. Man, his backup quarterback, probably Jaden Rashada, crack the joke to get Carson going. Like that doesn't bother me, man. Stuff like that happens. I do that, from time to time on the sideline in NFL games. Like, man, sometimes you trust me, man. On the sideline, sometimes it sucks, right? When things aren't going your way and you're playing bad, turn the ball over, man, it sucks. Sometimes you just need to kind of reset, get back to zero, and say, there are bigger things in life than exactly what's happening in this football game. But obviously we want to win this. So
yes.
Anyway, I say all that to say that doesn't bother me. But what does bother me is lack of physicality and just somebody not stepping up on offense to make a play. And we're going to kind of see what that product looks like this week playing Tennessee. But I don't know. We got to see some kind of adjustments, some kind of scheme kind of moving forward.
Todd McShay, who used to be ESPN's top NFL draft analyst alongside Mel Kiper, he is at the Ringer Network now, and he jumped on his podcast on Sunday and said, in the biggest game of the season for both teams, relatively speaking, it was a huge game for Georgia. They had to have it in most instances, depending on what happens the last 3 games of the season. He looked directly at the wide receiver position and said the Georgia Bulldogs, who are at the top of the mountain of college football for the last 5 years, they had one player. The longest reception for Georgia against Ole Miss was by their running back, Cash Jones, for a 29-yard reception. He looked at the talent and he said it's almost inexcusable for Georgia to be in this position at the skill set for wide receiver. Yes, it hurt that Ra Thomas is no longer with the program. Yes, Colby Young has not been with the program, a guy who scored multiple touchdowns in the first few weeks. We'll see what happens with his situation. Jake, you tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Dominic Lovett, Arian Smith, Dylan Bell, like they are on the field every single snap. There's no depth at the position. You're not able to rotate these guys. They're not winning their one-on-one battles. They're not creating space. And that has to directly correlate with some of the play calling. I understand fans are just totally mad when you're seeing Carson Beck take a shotgun snap and look immediately lateral for a screen, for a swing pass, for a short to intermediate pass. They're not throwing it down the field because nobody can win one-on-one matchups and the offensive line can't block. It is not a good situation. We'll talk about the defense here in just a second, but you and I have talked countless times as to how the game plan early settles Carson in, and then hopefully you're able to establish a run game, take some heat off the pass rush, and then try to stretch the field with or without play action being an availability. But Mike Bobo isn't just calling screenplay after screenplay after screenplay because he wants to. Like, I think that's what people need to understand.
Yeah.
There's not just this gross ignorance to want to call these plays. Why is it happening? Please educate our listeners.
Yeah, because in the one game that quickly comes to mind where they came out aggressive, hey, we are throwing it, bang, 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 was the Alabama game. And had 1 or 2 drops, and they got down early, got down big early, and they just could never get themselves out of the hole that they dug. And so you kind of go back to what happened in experience when we came out aggressive. That's a pretty bad experience. So that's why they're doing this dip toe. Hey, is the water cold? Is it warm? I don't really know, but we're just kind of feeling it out here, throwing these screen passes, getting kind of perimeter stuff going. And honestly, man, trying to instill confidence in Carson moving forward, who's had turnover problems, man. And that is just a bad headspace to be 100%. As a quarterback, man, when you're saying, man, I can't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over. And I hate it for him in this game specifically because he had an interception and he had a fumble, but man, both of those were not his fault, man. That was a tip ball,
Yep.
and this kind of going behind him. I mean, I'm sure it was a very accurate ball going before that. That, man, a strip sack fumble, you can't really do anything about that. So I hate it, but man, those 2 turnovers are going to, count towards him on the stat
Of
sheet.
course.
But you got to move forward, and you got to keep swinging, and you got to keep ripping it.
Okay, so let's switch attention to the defense here. Again, say what you want. They held Ole Miss to 5 field goals, which is miraculous given how long they were on the field. They were only allowed to get 1 sack, or only able to get 1 sack, which, again, the pass rush for Georgia, it's kind of Jekyll and Hyde as to, are they getting after the quarterback in one game and not the next? In conjunction with Ole Miss, they were able to sack Carson Beck 5 times. Clearly, much different situation, pinning their ears back, knowing the Dogs had to throw it. But I think what was most alarming for many Georgia fans watching this game was the wide open, quick slant game, middle of the field, coverage breakdown, catch and run. I mean, you're talking 10, 12-yard passes that are turning into 35, 45-yard games with nobody in sight. It seemed like they had something keyed on, run pass option, get to the second level, win the mismatch against the linebacker, and it was just off to the races. I mean, it was a quick one move, linebacker falls, and that dude's wide open, Jake. And it happened again and again.
Yeah, Lane did a good job of scheming the defense up. He knows that there is match principles on defense for Georgia, and that basically means for the underneath defenders that they're going to match and basically become man coverage if a receiver or tight end or running back comes into their zone. So as soon as they enter that zone, hey, I'm going to stick to that guy like glue. And what they would do is they'd send a guy into that zone, and then another offensive receiver or whatnot would come kind of in and underneath that zone, and do a great job with kind of misdirection and rubbing plays and that kind of thing. So Lane did a good job. We had a bust from a linebacker on a blitz who thought the running back was in protection and actually slipped out, had bad eyes, and threw it to him over the middle for a great player early in the game. But the defense has just kind of been hot and cold, and you just don't know what you're gonna get any given Saturday. But man, I want to see Malachi Starks be the center of attention and put this guy wherever he needs to go to make plays. And honestly, I'd love to see this guy play better and step up and be a leader for this football team, and not just take over on the defensive side, but take over the whole team as a whole.
Yeah, again, for me, it goes back to kind of leadership, not only on the field, but off the field. Because when you talk about a guy like Malachi Starks, a preseason All-American, a bona fide stud, you could never question his ability. For whatever reason, he just has not been that dude on the defense, much like Carson Beck has not been that dude on the offense, much like Trevor Etienne has yet to really take over a football game. Yes, he's been dealing with some injuries. I love a guy like a CJ Allen. CJ was all over the place on Saturday. He could step up in a big-time role. Jalen Walker, Michael Williams. I was on the radio this morning, Jake, and I played the Dan Campbell cut from inside the locker room last night. You guys, miraculous victory. Second half, you shut out the Texans, 2 bomb field goals. You found a way to win. And Dan Campbell said it so explicitly. He said, great teams find a way when they're not at their best. Great teams find a way to win. They will it to happen when they're not at their best. That's exactly what the Detroit Lions did last night. Georgia has not showed me that yet. Okay, go back to the Kentucky game, I guess. Like, didn't have your best, you found a way. Kentucky's awful. Against a team like Ole Miss, you didn't have your best, and what's probably so perplexing is that you forced a turnover on the third play of the game. You start handing the ball off, you run it down there to the 1-yard line, you punch it in for a quick score. It's 7-0. You're like, that's the perfect start you needed.
Oh, yeah.
Then you knock Dart out of the game. You're like, holy shit, Georgia's going to roll. Simmons lights you up. They go down there and score. It's like game on. And then they really couldn't adjust after that. Ole Miss knew what they wanted to do. They were able to execute it. And when I say great teams find a way, somebody steps up, man. Like, I look at a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, that dude is so fiery, so physical. You can always count on him. Jared Goff had 5 picks last night. And somehow the Lions found a way to win. It just takes certain guys to shoulder that responsibility and say, I'm doing this. This is my team. I'm stepping up. And it's just not happening. Now, the beauty is they have an opportunity on Saturday night with Tennessee coming to town. College game day is going to be in town. That will be a do or die game for both teams. Will or will not Nico Iamaleava play? Don't know yet. That will be decided later on in the week. But Jake, it's such a stark difference from the teams of the past couple of years at Georgia, teams that have reached the mountaintop, as to what we're seeing so far in this new era in 2024 college football.
Yeah, specifically about the Dogs and passing the eye test and comparing them to years past. They're not prior years. It's just not the same dominance that we're used to seeing. But can they find a way to win? Absolutely. I mean, they've proven that they can go into hostile environments versus Texas and still play somewhat bad and control the game and win in such a dominating fashion. So they can absolutely do it. The gift and the blessing of this is there are 12 teams that can get into this deal. They can host a playoff game and get some momentum from that as well. And I'd love to talk about on Wednesday's episode as well about this SEC championship possibility and the tiebreaker and going to that. So, I mean, they could still find a way into an SEC championship. I mean, which is absolutely crazy. So, man, the best is yet to come, and they can still get it going and have to win Saturday.
You have to. So, you mentioned the Texas game on the road against the number one team in the nation, Texas. Alabama, you talked about that game on the road in Tuscaloosa against the top 5 team. Kickoff game, Clemson, neutral site, top 10, top 15 team. Stuart Mandel tweeted out earlier today, it's November 11th, and Georgia has played more top 25 road neutral games, 4, than total home games. The Dogs have only played 3 total home games up to this point. They, of course, finished the rest of the season out inside Sanford Stadium. So we'll obviously break that game down big time on Thursday's episode.
Yeah, I don't know when this graphic, the date of this was prior. It was this past week, but the strength of schedule, Georgia had
number one
in strength of schedule.
Yeah. How does that play into them? Well, let's put it this way. They have to win on Saturday, right? Like, that's irrelevant if they don't win on Saturday.
You can't be a 3-loss team, yeah.
And then the Tech game, which we'll talk about here in just a second, that now seems way more interesting than maybe some fans had predicated or predicted a couple of weeks ago. What videos do we have here, Spencer? This one came out. It kind of went semi-viral. A Georgia player who was then identified to be Jake Pope. Ole Miss, of course, rushed the field. They tore down the goalposts. It was the one loss that I had been waiting to see from Georgia, which you hadn't yet. A team rushing the field on the road, that big behemoth going down. Georgia had lost in SEC championship games. They, of course, lost at Alabama. Alabama's not going to rush the field when they beat Georgia. This was it. This is the one that's been percolating since the run began in 2021. So Ole Miss fans rush the field. Kirby's swamped by the state troopers. Guys are heading into the locker room. And if you're watching on YouTube, this video went viral earlier on Monday, and it is not a good look. I mean, Jake Pope, backup safety from Buford High School here in the Atlanta area, and of course a transfer from Alabama. He is smiling. He is high-fiving. He is jumping up and down with a family who's wearing Ole Miss football gear. About as bad of a look as you could possibly get, okay? Kirby was asked about this. Head coach Kirby Smart was asked about this video in his Monday press conference, Jake, because the video is picking up major steam on social media, so you had to expect Kirby to be asked a question about it. And here is what head coach Kirby Smart had to say about the Jake Pope on-field celebration with Ole Miss fans after the game.
Yeah, what an idiot. Just stupid. I didn't see it till today, but he's embarrassed about it. He's upset about it. That's obviously a childhood friend of his who grew up and played with there at Buford and knows him, hadn't seen him in forever, but just not real smart. But to be honest with you, I don't have time to waste energy on that. You know what I'm saying? Like my focus is on Tennessee. I'm not worried about that.
So Kirby saying, what an idiot, to Jake Pope doing that. He said he's embarrassed about it. Jake Pope has since, posted a Notes app apology. Jake, what do you say to this? I mean, that's just such a bad look. Really, there's no excuse. It's just as simple as that. There's no excuse.
No excuses. Kirby hit the nail on the head. What an idiot.
Yeah.
What are you doing? This is just, bad look for everybody. I don't know. What are we doing? I'm going back to my high school offensive coordinator, Mike Chastain. Anytime I'd make a bad decision, which was quite rare, but it still happened, he'd be like, what are you doing? And that's exactly what are we doing? I mean, you cannot do this. So
no, I mean, and then he comes out and says he was a childhood friend and I hadn't seen the family in a while. Like, dude, you don't even have to make an explanation because it's such a bad look.
Yeah, just don't. Yeah.
There's no excuse. It's like, I messed up. Like, I should have never have done that. It sucks there was a camera on old buddy. Like, that is absolutely brutal. He's embarrassed, and I'm sure people will not let him live that down. So what an idiot indeed. It was embarrassing for him and really just kind of puts the cherry on top for what has been, the most troublesome weekend of Georgia football from an on-field product and kind of the fallout after the fact that Bulldog fans have had in quite some time. If you don't want to be an idiot, if you don't want to be embarrassed, head on over to Solomon Brothers Jewelers the weekend of November 22nd through the 24th because it's the Takori Bridal event. You can get up to $10,000 cash back on Takori engagement rings and wedding bands, or you can choose 3 years of interest-free financing. They'll have GIA certified diamonds there as well. It's at all 3 locations, Atlanta, Alpharetta, and Sharpsburg. Check them out, SolomonBrothers.com, at Solomon Brothers on social media. Okay, let's go to second down quickly. The All-State playoff predictor has come out. And Spencer, you can go ahead and throw this up on a graphic. We'll just talk about it for a little bit. This, of course, gets updated, Jake, every week. So this came out on Sunday of this week with the new percentage values of teams to make the 12-team college football playoff. Oregon leading the way, 95% chance. How about Indiana? Indiana and Ohio State play this weekend. Indiana has a 93% chance to make the playoff. Ohio State, a 92% chance. Then they take a really big dip down, 10 percentage points. Texas, 82%. Penn State, 81%. Alabama, 76%. Tennessee, 74%. Georgia, 73% to make the college football playoff. Tennessee and Georgia play each other this weekend. Indiana and Ohio State play each other this weekend. Rounding it out, Boise State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Miami, all around that 70 to 60% range. Don't look now, but Colorado has a path, Jake, to make the college football playoff.
Wow.
It's really incredible. I had been a hater of this 12-team playoff system, but one, as Georgia has lost more games than anticipated, and two, with kind of the chaos that we're getting week in and week out, I'm starting to come around to it. It will certainly be a very interesting final 3 weeks of the regular season.
Yeah, I see South Carolina.
How about South Carolina?
What is going in Missouri?
Missouri.
Holy cow, what's going on here? But the one that's sneaky now, man, is Ole Miss. I just looked at their next 2 games. They only have 2 left. It's Florida and Mississippi State. Both very winnable games.
Oh, yeah.
Get into the dance. Miami's a little bit lower than expected. They're a 1-loss team who everybody has loved this season. Got arguably the best quarterback in the country. SMU at 38%. BYU, an undefeated team at 59%. Man, I don't know. There's so many kind of possibilities of what's going on here. I think championship kind of weekend is going to be so interesting to see.
Yeah.
Which one of these teams gets an automatic bid because they won their championship? Is it a team that was already in the top 5, 6, or is it one of those French teams that now have an automatic bid and kind of messes everything up? So,
look no further than Texas A&M in that situation. Texas A&M, per this chart, a 14% chance to make the playoff. However, if they win their games out, then they go to the SEC championship game. They have a good day. They win. They're in, and they have a bye, which is fascinating. I do not want to gloss over Alabama. 76% chance to make the playoff. They absolutely smoked LSU inside Tiger Stadium, 42-13. Jalen Milroe, 4 rushing touchdowns. The guy was incredible. The defense stepped up in a big way, limited and shut down Garrett Nussmeier and that high-powered LSU passing offense. So Alabama looking good. And remember, just weeks ago, their fan base was totally out on Kalen DeBoer. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Tennessee. The season was a disaster. Now they beat LSU. They're right back in the picture, not only to make it to the SEC championship, but to almost solidify their spot in the college football playoffs. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about the mindset shift from a fan's perspective of all teams. You can lose games now, and you can reset, you can fix what went wrong, and you can march towards the playoff and a national championship berth. Miami down to 60%, Jake. They lost to Georgia Tech on the flats, 28-23. Georgia Tech upsets undefeated, top 5 ranked Miami. The Canes were ranked 4th. I do want to mention this. Louis Riddick, who is on the call for ESPN, the guy's a former NFL front office executive. The guy also is an NFL draft analyst for ESPN. He said this, quote, I'm thinking back to the job that Georgia Tech offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner did yesterday in constructing one of the best 2-game quarterback plans that I have ever seen. And he did it with the QB that will be limited as a thrower, being the starter. That's Haynes King. And the QB that would be asked to throw it in obvious passing situations as the number 2 guy. That's freshman Aaron Philo from Prince Avenue. It was executed to absolute perfection, a masterclass. I'm just glad I was there to witness it. That's what Louis Riddick said about Buster Faulkner's game plan with 2 quarterbacks being executed to perfection, a quote-unquote masterclass by Buster Faulkner, who, of course, used to be at the University of Georgia, a Parkview grad, now the OC at Georgia Tech. So, Spencer, you can take this graphic down now. A huge win for Tech. Really kind of shakes things up in the ACC, but simply put, it's a new day and age, man. I mean, you're in November, you have 2 conference losses, and you're still alive in the playoff, and this weekend looks to be a huge one for the Dogs.
Yeah, it's now or never. It's playoff football now for a lot of teams out there. I mean, really, I think it's kind of Oregon, Ohio State. Really, it's only those 2 teams I see possibly that can kind of get by with maybe a hiccup.
Yeah.
But everybody else, I mean, they have to go and get after it. I mean, even a undefeated BYU team and an undefeated Indiana team, like everybody is begging for these teams to lose so they can kick them out of the college football playoff.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, those teams have to win. It is playoff football from here on out, and you have to go and you have to play your best and be your best.
You sent some great stats earlier. Indiana now 10-0. Incredible story in college football. They reached 10 wins in a season for the first time in football program history. There are only 2 Power 4 programs in college football that have never, ever had a 10-win season. Vanderbilt, which I guess is expected, and Iowa State. I would have thought Iowa State had reached 10 wins before in their history.
Right?
I don't think they have the ability.
I feel like they've been at 9
now. I know they've been at 9 many times. And then, of course, you sent another great one. The preseason projected win totals for the remaining unbeaten teams in Power 4 football. Oregon, unbeaten. Their preseason win total, 10.5, so pretty respectable. Indiana, 10-0. They were projected to win 5.5 football games. Army, 10-0, projected to win 5.5 football games. And then BYU, picked to be almost dead last in the Big 12 in preseason rankings. They were projected to win 4.5 games, Jake Fromm. They are undefeated. So pretty incredible there. Pretty incredible. It's been a wild season, and it will just continue to get more wild. We, of course, will break down the biggest games on Thursday's episode coming up this weekend on Punt and Pass. I would be remiss, though, not to mention a storyline that really grasped the entirety of the college football nation late last week, and that was Ben Herbstreit, Kirk Herbstreit's dog, his sidekick, passing away very rapidly, which is extremely sad. Look, we've all lost dogs. Dogs are the absolute best. I took some liberties and had fun with the storyline throughout the season, when he's on the field, when they're putting graphics up on him, when all of these visiting or welcoming teams are printing out press badges for Ben Herbstreit. Losing a dog is the worst thing ever. So that totally sucks. For Kirk, he was extremely emotional on College Game Day about it. I mean, broke down sobbing, and then started up a video essay. Spencer, do you have the video essay? Do you want to play a little clip of that? Because I think everybody rallied around Kirk, which was great to see. It's a great sign of humanity.
Dogs are known as man's best friend. But what do you call a dog that becomes a nation's best friend? You call him Ben. I'll be honest with you, when I first started bringing Ben on the road, it was for me. I needed a travel companion. Hotel rooms can sometimes feel like islands of solitude, and his warm presence became my anchor to home, making my journeys feel less like wandering and more like belonging. When I was working in a hotel room, or a broadcast booth, or on the College Game Day set, reaching down and feeling that fur at my feet, it made me feel like I was home. Ben wasn't out here to become a social media star, but he became one, just by being himself. The Rose Bowl named him its Chief Happiness Officer, and that's exactly what he did. He made everyone happy, and he did it without even trying. He just wagged that tail or nestled up against strangers like they were family, and that's what they became. On planes, in hotel lobbies, on the beach, in the mountains, it didn't matter if you were a college student, a movie star, a national championship quarterback, or even a state governor. Ben didn't care who you were. Everyone deserved his love. I think we can all learn from that. At a time when everything seems to be aimed at dividing us, our love of football unites us every weekend. What I experienced with Ben was that, and so much more.
Credit to College Game Day for that video essay. Kirk Herbstreit did a phenomenal job with that. I mean, obviously, that has got to be so tough to do. And Jake, he had tweeted out like on Wednesday, I want to say, hey, Ben's not doing well. And then Thursday, he sends out the note, I believe it was on Thursday, that Ben had to be put down. So, man, that just sucks. Tough, and rest in peace, Ben Herbstreit. All dogs go to heaven. I do know that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's just terrible. Absolutely hate it, man. Just losing a dog, losing your best bud, and man, hate it for Kirk. But I know there's a lot of people sending love his way, and yeah, I mean, I feel for him. That's tough place to be.
No doubt about it. So, yeah, tough. Shout out to Kirk Herbstreit. No question about it. All right. Well, we got a big weekend of college football coming up. Again, College Game Day going to be in Athens. Tennessee at Georgia. Tennessee's 8-1, 5-1 in the SEC. The Dogs have dropped back to 7-2, 5-2 in conference. Ohio State's playing Indiana. We, of course, got some other great games across the country that we will break down for you on Thursday's episode. Did we miss anything? Let us know. Hit us up on social media at Punt and Pass, at Drew Butler, at Fromm Jake. Always love your reaction to what goes down in SEC football. And, of course, with the Georgia Bulldogs, head on over to SolomonBrothers.com. Yeah, it's time. It's engagement season. It's the holiday season. This episode of Punt and Pass was presented to you by our awesome partners over at Solomon Brothers Jewelers. SolomonBrothers.com, at Solomon Brothers on social media. A reminder, November 22nd through the 24th, the Takori Bridal event is coming up at all three locations. You can get up to $10,000 cash back on Takori engagement rings and wedding bands, or you can get 3 years of interest-free financing. They will have GIA-certified diamonds. You got to take advantage of this unbelievable Takori Bridal event at all three Solomon Brothers locations. Atlanta in Buckhead, Alpharetta just past the Avalon, and a brand new location south of the city in Sharpsburg. And if you go there this weekend before the Takori Bridal event, just tell them Punt and Pass sent you. You can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase when you are in store at Solomon Brothers. They have been the best. Anything else, my man?
No, man, it's going to be a big home game for the
is.
Dogs coming up. I cannot believe it. I mean, feels like they just haven't played at home, so it's going to be exciting. Going to be a big atmosphere. Can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Can't wait. The extended weather forecast, Saturday, 73 degrees and sunny.
Wow.
So it should be a perfect November day for everybody to enjoy a big-time game. Appreciate you tuning in to us. Have a great week, and we will talk to you on Thursday. See ya.
We out.